Well, as we mentioned, the focus is shifting from search and rescue to recovery. Investigators are hoping clues will help them determine what went wrong. CCTV's James Chau joins us from Jakarta. James, what is the latest on the recovery operation right now?
Well, thanks, AirAsia. That recovery operation so far has included what we now hear to be just 3 bodies pulled out from the waters because of bad weather. The search area is now extended to around 5,400 square meters. I took a look at the map, and it overlaps the flight path of 8501 on both sides, much more on the side towards Singapore, where it didn't reach, but also covering about 100 miles of what it had already flown from Surabaya. Now, as we talked about the 3 bodies so far, lots of relatives will be wanting to know about their own family members who are on board that flight. So DNA, photographs, dental records of the presumed deceased are already now being prepared by the families. They're gathering up that data for the authorities. Meanwhile, as we talk about the physical search of objects that could provide some clue as to what happened. So far, of course, as we saw a couple of hours ago, an oxygen tank pulled out, something that resembled the emergency plane door, life jackets, life rafts, and also a blue hard case suitcase that looked almost untouched. They expect, though, that the plane will be found in several large pieces, which will make it much easier to locate, because if that plane broke up on impact with the water rather than up in the air, that will make it a lot easier to find. The interesting and extraordinary stories emerging today is that a fisherman literally stumbled upon parts of that wreckage. He was out on Sunday working on his boat. He didn't get back until very late Monday night, and that was the first time he heard on the news that an AirAsia plane had possibly come down. He contacted his local police. He told them about the large bits of metal that he had found in the water, especially with the distinctive red and white markings, that is the AirAsia logo. And then the police contacted the National Search and Rescue Headquarters, knowing, of course, what the rest of the world knew, but what this one man out in the waters didn't at the time.
So, James, turning to the evacuation of the bodies, what's going to be the key factor for the recovery teams?
I think AirAsia is definitely going to be weather. We saw that a lot of these bodies were found downstream about 100 kilometers plus, and that would suggest that not only time had been a factor in the 2.5 days since that plane disappeared, and then the location of parts of that wreckage, but of course there is the current to deal with, and then of course the general bad weather. Tony Fernandez, whom Mira mentioned in that press conference, had also outlined the possible cause of the weather being a factor in this disaster. He didn't want to jump to a conclusion as to what could have caused that plane to come down, but the pilot did make that request to make that left turn shortly before contact was completely lost, because he said bad weather and an oncoming storm. And, you know, we look at the picture of Southeast Asia as it is right now at this time of the year particularly, but also in these couple of days, we're seeing major flooding in northern parts of Malaysia, major floods also in Thailand, all very, very close by to the areas of interest in this search zone. So it won't be surprising that now that light has broken behind us here in Jakarta and in Surabaya, the rescuers or the recovery workers, as you put it, will be rushing out there trying to make as much of the time that they do have with the light, but also with the weather being a major, major factor.
Yep, another difficult day ahead. Thank you so much, James Chau in Jakarta.